Hi, I'm Bernice Cumming. I'm the architectural consultant for Firth, and I've known Bob for quite a while. We did a tour around New Zealand with a gentleman by the name of Jerome Partington, and at that stage, Bob was teaching people and showing people what you could do with windows and where windows should actually be, not on the outside of the wall, but the inside of the wall. And at that stage, I was sort of just starting on my journey on talking about low carbon concrete. Um, and and then from there, obviously getting to know Bob more and about what the super home was and how our products at Firth can actually help with the super home and in the selection. And then we've also worked with Bob on very recent homes, just starting with a foundation, a simple foundation, and looking at, we like to get rid of polystyrene, and we've replaced polystyrene with recycled plastic pods. And the reason that we've done that is because at the end of life, we can actually separate the concrete from the plastic and the steel. And currently we have a circular economy for that. So we can recycle plastic, we can recycle concrete, and we can recycle steel. And those just keep getting recycled time and time again. So they become your cradle to cradle. And so even though some of those products will have a really high upfront carbon over that life, and we like to think people are designing for more than the minimum of a 50-year design life, that they are going, when using concrete, 100 years. Why not more than 100 years design life? But at least when you break down or remove those houses or that slab, it can be recycled, and we're keeping it out of landfill. Along came H1, and really polystyrene is the best way to insulate some of those slabs now. So, you know, we're back to putting what we call hot edge on the edge of the slab now, but we can still separate the majority of that slab when it comes to the end of life. So we're loving that. And we've worked with Bob too on using hot edge and what we call X-Pod, which is our recycled plastic pods. And we've also got a new one now. We've collaborated with another company called Cleverpod, and they have a swap out, a complete swap out. So their pod is actually 1100. So if you do have a design that you've used polystyrene and you want to actually have a better result, you can just do a complete swap out and use a recycled plastic pod there too. And the great thing is that we're putting our low carbon concrete over the top. So when you're buying concrete from Firth, you are getting at least a 10 to 20% less carbon from the, we use the ISC, Infrastructure Sustainability Council baseline. And you're getting that all day, every day. People often say to me, you know, what's the difference between our standard concrete and your low carbon concrete? Well, guess what? You're getting it anyway. You're getting low carbon. We've made all these decarbonisation of both the cement and the concrete, and we're passing that through. You're getting it anyway. But you know, if you really want to push the boat out and you really want to have more of a low carbon concrete, well then we start to add things like fly ash and slag, and you know, we're getting up there. We're getting into sort of like 40-50% reductions in carbon for your concrete. Yes, look, it's all about education, isn't it? You know, if you're looking at the upfront carbon, yes, of course, you know, wood is going to be obviously less carbon than concrete. But if you're looking at the design life, after 50 years, your timber construction is probably coming up to some maintenance. It's coming up to refurbishment or replacement. And what's the carbon to do that? Whereas with your concrete structure, you might not have started to have your maintenance quite as much. And you know, I'm not comparing concrete with timber by any means, because there's no such thing as a bad product. You use the products that are suitable for the site. You know, you might, and people should actually count the cost of carbon, you know, by actually taking like concrete out of a place where it should be, like on a hill or on a site that should have concrete, and you're placing it with timber. What is the cost of that? You know, use the product that should be used. And then if you do your life cycle assessment, I think you will start to see the maintenance and then the recycling, and you know, what happens to your the material that you've chosen, does it end up in landfill or can you be recycled? So those are all questions that are, for a designer, when you're selecting that product, should actually be asked. Yeah, concrete has for years been known for its thermal conductivity, and it's known for its solar gain as well. So if you have an exposed concrete slab or concrete masonry, if you have a concrete masonry wall, it absorbs the heat from the sun that comes through from the windows and from body heat, any heat that's generated inside the house, absorbs it during the day, and then as the temperature changes, it actually releases that warm temperature. And so with a concrete house and with a masonry house, you will get more of an ambient temperature, and you don't get the fluctuations so much, going either too hot and then you're having to cool it. And there's a carbon footprint and a cost to cool your house, as well as a cost to heat your house. So a concrete structure actually does hold a more ambient temperature. And I guess also for a concrete structure, you've got your fire rating, you've got your STCs, your noise, controlling the noise. And a concrete structure also has your bracing units. So it can be a slightly cheaper construction method, a simpler construction method. But like I say, there's no good and bad products or material selections. It's going to depend on the site, it's going to depend on the design, and you know what you're actually wanting that building to do and to be.
Sorry, yep.
Okay, and so when it comes to the landscape, there's also another way that you can lower your carbon, and that's using permeable paving. We've used permeable paving with Bob and his super homes many times, where the building has actually gone over its footprint, and we have so much tar seal and concrete around that really we need to absorb that water back into the land and recharge those aquifers. Now the great thing about permeable paving is it allows the water to run through the paving. It's not on a gap material, it's on a no fines aggregate base. It has about a 35 void ratio, and that's where it actually stores and holds the water. But the amazing thing is in New Zealand we have greywacke. And greywacke, as the water filters through and the copper and the zinc from your car brake pads filters through, there's something called a cationic exchange. It's the negative and positive ions, and they're actually attracted to the greywacke. And so as the water filters through the base of the permeable paving, it's actually cleansing that water. It's cooling that water as well. So by the time it hits the streams or the storm water, it's actually cooled it. Because, you know, tar seal, it gets quite hot. If you've ever walked barefoot on tar seal, it can get quite hot. And so when the water and the rain hits the tar seal, it heats and gets quite warm. And if you put warm water into, say, a stream, you actually start to kill the microorganisms, which is, you know, the start of life. So I really love permeable paving because it is, permeable paving is made from masonry. And it's what you call a dry cast, and so it uses very little cement, so it actually starts off with as a low carbon material to start off with. As I say, we've known Bob for many years, and we became a participant for Super Homes. Probably last year was our first sort of just toe in the water, as it were, and yeah, we just haven't looked back. I think it's like-minded people. It's people that actually understand what it is to be in a super home. You know, I despair sometimes when I talk to people about using low carbon, about using permeable paving in the right places, and some of them say it's not in the design brief. The customer hasn't asked for it. You know, and I just think, well, we're not waiting for legislation, we're actually doing it anyway. We're decarbonising right now our cement and our concrete, and we're passing that through right now to everybody. And I just think you don't have to wait. Every individual can make a difference. Look, I guess renovations are quite a difficult thing, because normally if you're looking at a concrete slab, that's the first cab off the rank, it's the first thing that goes down. is your concrete slab. So unless they're actually redoing the concrete slab, and you'd actually hope not, you'd hope that they would be repurposing that concrete slab, then it would come down to, are they knocking out walls? Do they need to put up a masonry wall? Because then it just depends, there's a lot of trend about using standard concrete block and then honing and polishing it. So it really depends what the renovation is. Do you need a structural wall in there? Then you'd be using a 20 series structural, or is it going to be like a brick renovation? Then you could use a 10 series brick, or you could use one of our masonry bricks. So again, as I said, because they are what we call dry cast, we use very little cement, so they are actually a very low carbon material to start off with. It's amazing, I will sometimes take concrete samples, and if it's something on the floor, the first thing people do is they stand on it. They stand on the sample and they rub their feet on it, and sometimes I'll have a concrete sample and you just put it there, and if it's polished or if it's honed, the first thing people do is they rub their hands on it. They just rub their hands. It's not, it can be cold, concrete can be cold, but, and that's why you have designers like Bob, who really bring it to life, and he brings all the products to life. Concrete New Zealand Association has released a roadmap to zero carbon by 2050. And Golden Bay Cement is New Zealand's only manufacturer of cement, and they are way down that track to decarbonise the cement. And because Firth uses Golden Bay cement, we automatically have about a 20% saving in that carbon, which we pass on to people. But we're not sitting still. As those innovations come through and those improvements come through, it might be 2% here, 3% here. Before you know it, you've got 5-10% savings. So always check in with us and just see where we can help you with your carbon, because we're not standing still. We're not waiting for legislation to come through. We are out there doing it. But Golden Bay Cement is what we call a clean plant as opposed to a dirty plant. So they are, burning. Golden Bay have done an amazing job. They've actually displaced just over 50% of their use of coal to heat their furnace, and they're using materials from landfill. So all that timber waste that you chuck in the bin, we're using that. They are burning over 3 million used tyres, so they call them WELT, waste end-of-life tyres. New Zealand produces 6 million used tyres every year. So Golden Bay take just over 3 million of those, they chip it up, and they use that to burn, to get their furnace up to about 1400 degrees Celsius, which is what they need to change the limestone, into clinker, which is what they would then grind to make cement. Well, I actually work for them because I work for the concrete division. So in the concrete division, we have Golden Bay, we have Winstones, and we have Firth. So all three of those companies, obviously to make concrete, you need cement, which binds the aggregates together, and then you need water, which then starts that chemical reaction, which then makes concrete. It's very simple. There's very, very simple ingredients in concrete.